just Nick, and this is the Catalinbread Semaphore Tap Tremolo. Well, building on the success and fabulousness of the original Catalinbread Semaphore, the Semaphore Tap Tremolo is pretty much a tremolo lover's tremolo in that it does the full range of kind of classic recognizable sounds, the pulsing sort of bias type tremolo, the more fluttery and a little bit more choppy sort of opto tremolo, as well as the full range of kind of freaky and far out and extreme sounds that a tremolo is capable of. It does all of that, and it has tap tempo. Let's start by looking at the tap tempo. Basically, it's a switch that you tap, and how the timing of the modulation is set depends on both how fast you tap, but also how you've set the tap divide knob. Okay, so when the tap divide knob is set all the way counterclockwise to half note, then what's going to happen is each tap that you make will actually be half the duration of the modulation. So it's going to go even slower than how fast you tap. So if I tap, 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 okay, it's going to be half that speed. Which is more useful than you think, because it's really hard to tap in tempo that slowly. So you could tap quarter notes of whatever beat you're playing along with, and it'll give you this really slow, big sort of pulsing wave. When you go to quarter notes, it will modulate as fast as you tap. Sorry, I didn't turn it far enough. Here we go. There we go. As fast as you tap. It's hard to see the front of the pedal. You understand. Next setting is 8th note triplets. Or is it quarter note triplets? Quarter note triplets. It'll subdivide your taps into quarter note triplets. Next is 8th notes. It'll go twice as fast as you tap. Listen to that. It sounds really friggin' good. 8th note triplets all the way up to 16th notes. All of this is super useful because I don't know about you, but I can't tap 16th notes on a switch. Can't do it. So all I got to do is tap in my quarter notes, boom, 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 from a disco beat, and it'll do the rest for me, syncing up the modulation with the rhythm that I'm playing with. And the beauty of having tap tempo on a tremolo is this. Sure, you can dial in the appropriate or close to the appropriate tempo on a tremolo without tap tremolo. But unless it's really spot on, you can't go that deep. You can't get a very, very choppy or intense tremolo happening without it kind of interfering with the kind of pulse of the particular song that you're playing. When you have tap tempo, you can get it spot on, even in a live situation, and that means you can use much more extreme effects without them kind of interfering with the rhythmic feel of what you're playing. In fact, they can support the rhythmic feel. They can even when they're very extreme. Fair enough. It's a very useful thing to have on a tremolo. Much more useful than you might think if you haven't used it. Next knob is the shape knob, which kind of controls the ramp up and ramp down of the modulation. Makes it steeper or less steep. Let's listen to the two extremes. Here is counterclockwise. Yes, it's hard for me to figure out in reverse. And clockwise, much smoother. I take that back. This is very sharp on the ramp up, and I'm sorry, smooth on the ramp up and steep on the ramp down. This is the opposite. Ramps up and drops off sharply, and in the middle is kind of smooth on both sides. Cool, full range there. Here's where it gets really crazy. You have a choice of waveforms, everything from very choppy triangle waves through even choppier square wave to some crazy half circly things to even a random one. You can't tell how it's going to modulate. I'm not familiar with another tremolo that does that. Let's go back to our standard sine wave. You have a depth knob. Goes from very present to very subtle. Which is kind of cool to combine with some of the freakier waveforms as kind of a subtle step. Kind of creates some interest in kind of rhythmic variation in a very kind of subtle but ear-catching way. And finally, you have a fabulous volume boost, and that gives me the opportunity to point to something great about all Catalinbread modulation pedals, which is that the audio path is really, really high quality. So your clean signal sounds great through the buffer, and the affected signal, even if you're playing with very clean sounds and you really like the way they are, if anything, it adds just a little bit of shine to them. They sound even better modulated than they do straight through, which is pretty cool. It's not coloring them or altering them in any significant way, just a little bit more shine so that effect really kind of comes through. I'm not very articulate. It's kind of Sunday. In any event, you need to have a nice volume boost available to you because a modulation effect ultimately cuts your average volume, or at least a tremolo does, because some of the time it's reducing volume. So this is just a perfectly ranged switch or knob to allow you to really hear yourself even with a pretty deep and throbbing tremolo. See how nice that is? This is a great sounding tremolo pedal that just does about anything you could want a tremolo pedal to do, at least anything I'd want a tremolo pedal to do. If it did any more than that, I would find it upsetting and disturbing. Get a hold of the folks at Rock and Roll Vintage, and they will hook you up with the Catalinbread Semaphore Tap Tremolo. Until next time.